Hey everyone, I'm Elena Harper, a 28-year-old cybersecurity analyst living in the heart of Seattle. Welcome to my story, a raw, unfiltered journey through one of the darkest moments of my life and how I clawed my way out. If you're watching this, thank you for being here. I'm filming this from my loft, with the Space Needle glowing in the distance, and I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop it in the comments below. This is part 1 of a 6-part series, so hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. Picture this. It's a rainy Seattle evening and I'm in my loft, surrounded by sleek glass walls and the hum of my dual monitor setup. I'm debugging code for a major client, sipping a latte from my favorite Fremont coffee shop. My life feels stable. My career's thriving. I've got a tight-knit group of friends, and I'm proud of the space I've carved out in this vibrant city. But beneath that, there's a weight I've carried for years. My family. Specifically, my older sister Lila, who's 32, and the star of the Harper family show. Growing up, it was always about Lila. She's the kind of person who lights up a room. Charming, dramatic, the center of attention. Our parents, Clara and David, treated her like royalty. Me? I was the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who got straight A's and never caused trouble. But no matter what I did, it was never enough to outshine Lila. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 22, fresh out of college. I'd just landed my first big job at a tech startup, a competitive role with a 6-figure salary. I was so proud, ready to share the news. But at dinner, Lila announced she'd booked a small modeling gig. Mom raised her glass, tears in her eyes, and toasted to Lila's bright future. My news? It got a pat on the hand and a distracted, "That's nice, Elena." Lila didn't even look at me. She just basked in the glow. That's how it's always been. I was the family's safety net, the one they called when they needed help. When Lila struggled to pay rent in her early 20s, I covered it. When she needed a resume for her first real job, I stayed up all night tweaking it. I wasn't just her sister, I was her fixer. And then came Troy, her fiancé. Troy's a 35-year-old entrepreneur with a flashy smile and a temper that simmers just below the surface. When Lila brought him home 2 years ago, I saw a spark of something dangerous in him, but I pushed it aside. Lila loved him, and I wanted her to be happy. I even helped them get their first apartment together, co-signing the lease and fronting the deposit. Troy called me a lifesaver, and Lila hugged me, saying I was the sister she always needed. Fast forward to that rainy night in my loft. Lila and Troy were over, supposedly to discuss their upcoming wedding. I'd offered to help with the planning, catering, guest lists, the usual sister stuff. But the conversation took a turn. Lila started nitpicking my suggestions, her voice sharp. "You always think you know better, Elena," she snapped. Troy chimed in, his tone mocking. "Yeah, Miss Cybersecurity, not everyone needs your perfectionist vibe." I tried to stay calm, suggesting we focus on the budget. That's when Troy exploded. "You think you're so much better than us, don't you?" he shouted, his face inches from mine. I stepped back, heart racing, and said, "Troy, let's just talk this out." But he wasn't listening. Before I could react, his fist connected with my jaw, sending me crashing into the kitchen counter. Pain exploded across my face, and I hit the floor, the cold hardwood biting into my skin. My wrist throbbed where I'd braced my fall. I tasted blood, my vision blurry, and there was Lila, standing by the fridge, her face blank, just watching. I looked at her, my sister, the person I'd spent my life supporting, and whispered, "Lila, help me." She didn't move. Her eyes flicked to Troy, then back to me, like I was an inconvenience. Troy grabbed his jacket, muttering about drama, and stepped over me like I was a spilled drink. Lila followed him to the door. As they left, My phone buzzed on the floor. It was a text from Lila. "Stay out of our lives, Elena." 4 words that shattered me. I lay there, the Seattle rain tapping against my windows, the city's glow mocking my pain. The sister I'd loved, the one I'd sacrificed for, had just watched her fiancé assault me and walked away. My jaw ached, my wrist screamed, and my heart felt like it had been ripped apart. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it burns, it freezes, it leaves you hollow. But as I stared at my phone, something shifted. The tears stopped. My trembling fingers steadied. I typed 1 word back. Done. I hit send. That word wasn't just for Lila, it was for me. A promise. The Elena who always fixed things, who always forgave, was gone. I didn't know what done meant yet, but I knew it was a line in the sand. This wasn't just about a punch or a text, it was about years of being invisible, of carrying a family that never carried me back. I pushed myself up, wincing as pain shot through my wrist, and looked at my reflection in the glass door. My face was swelling, a bruise blooming on my jaw. But my eyes? They were clear, sharp, determined. I called my best friend, Maya, the only person I knew would believe me. "Elena, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharp with worry. I told her everything. The argument, Troy's fist, Lila's silence. Maya didn't hesitate. "I'm coming over. Don't touch anything. We're calling the police. This isn't a fight, Elena, it's a crime." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me out of the fog. She was right. This wasn't just family drama, it was assault. And I wasn't going to let it slide. That night, as the rain kept falling, I started to see the path ahead. Lila and Troy thought they could erase me, but they'd just awakened something stronger. I wasn't just going to survive this, I was going to fight back. And I had no idea how far this fight would take me. That's where I'll leave you for now. Part 2 is coming, and trust me, it gets intense. If this story hit home, if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you loved, drop your story in the comments. Where are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in part 2. Hey everyone, Elena Harper here, back with part 2 of my story. If you're new, welcome. Go check out part 1 to catch up on the moment my life turned upside down. I'm filming this from my Seattle loft, the city lights sparkling through my window, and I'm so grateful you're here. Drop in the comments where you're watching from, and let me know if you've ever had to stand up to family pressure. This part's heavy, so let's dive in. Hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. Last time, I left you on that rainy Seattle night, sprawled on my loft's hardwood floor, my jaw throbbing from a punch by my sister Lila's fiancé, Troy. Lila, my 32-year-old sister, just stood there, watching, then texted me to stay out of our lives. That betrayal cut deeper than the pain in my face. But something shifted that night. A spark of resolve. I wasn't going to be the invisible sister anymore. Today, I'm taking you back to understand why this hurt so much and how I started fighting back. Let's rewind. Growing up in a small suburb outside Seattle, our family home was a cozy split level with a view of Puget Sound. It was me, Lila, Mom, Clara, and Dad, David. On the surface, we were the perfect family. Holiday dinners, summer barbecues, all smiles for the neighbors. But beneath that, it was the Lila show, 24/7. Lila was the golden child. Charismatic, dramatic, always the center of attention. She could do no wrong. Me? I was the quiet one, the one who got perfect grades, who never missed a deadline, who fixed everyone's messes. But no matter what I did, I was background noise. I remember one Christmas when I was 19, home from college. I'd just aced my finals and won a scholarship for my cybersecurity program. I was bursting to share it, but at dinner, Lila announced she'd gotten a part-time job at a boutique downtown. Mom's eyes lit up like Lila had cured cancer. To my star, shining so bright, she toasted, raising her wine glass. The whole table clapped. Dad, our aunts, even the cousins. Later, I mentioned my scholarship. My voice small but hopeful. Mom patted my hand, barely looking at me. That's nice, Elena. Don't work too hard, you'll burn out. Lila didn't even glance my way. She was too busy basking in the praise. That wasn't a one-off. It happened again and again. When I was 24, I landed my first big job at a tech startup, a cybersecurity role that came with a corner office and stock options. I was so proud. I'd clawed my way through a male-dominated field, beating out hundreds of applicants. At a family barbecue, I shared the news, thinking maybe this time they'd see me. Dad nodded absently, already turning to Lila, who was talking about her new modeling portfolio. That's my girl, building her empire, he said, grinning. Mom chimed in. Lila, you're going to be famous. My promotion? It got a, good for you, Elena, and a quick subject change. I sat there, my burger getting cold, feeling like a ghost at my own family's table. It wasn't just about praise. It was about resources, too. When our grandfather passed away, he left a small inheritance. I'd been saving for a master's degree, but the money went to Lila for a new car. A shiny red convertible she didn't need. Mom said, "You're doing fine, Elena. Lila needs the help." I swallowed my hurt, like always. I was the safety net, the one they leaned on but never lifted up. When Lila was 25 and got evicted for missing rent, I covered her deposit and 3 months' payments. When she needed a job, I spent hours rewriting her resume, even faking a reference to get her hired. I didn't just help, I carried her. Then came Troy. When Lila brought him home 2 years ago, he seemed like her perfect match. Charming, ambitious, with a startup that sounded impressive but never quite took off. He was 35, all sharp suits and big promises. I wanted to like him. I saw how Lila looked at him, like he was her ticket to a glamorous life. But there was something off. His smile never reached his eyes, and his temper flared over small things, like when I corrected his tech jargon at dinner. Still, I pushed my doubts aside. I wanted Lila to be happy. So when they needed a co-signer for their apartment lease, I stepped up. I even fronted the security deposit, telling them to pay me back whenever. Troy called me a godsend, and Lila hugged me, tears in her eyes, saying, "You're the best sister ever." I believed her. I wanted to. Back to that night in my loft. After Troy's punch and Lila's text, I was a mess. My jaw was swelling, my wrist ached, and my heart felt like it had been run through a shredder. I called my best friend Maya, who's been my rock since we bonded over Pokemon cards in 3rd grade. Maya's a graphic designer, all fire and loyalty, with a laugh that can light up a room. "Elena, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharp with worry. I told her everything. The argument over wedding plans, Troy's fist, Lila's cold stare. I could barely get the words out between sobs. Maya didn't hesitate. "I'm there in 20. Don't move. We're calling the police." She arrived at my loft, her curly hair dripping from the rain, and took one look at my face. "Oh, Elena," she whispered, pulling me into a hug. She guided me to the couch, grabbed an ice pack from my freezer, and held it to my jaw. "This isn't your fault," she said firmly. "Troy's a coward. And Lila, she's complicit. We're not letting this go." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me out of the fog. She was right. This wasn't just a fight. It was assault. And Lila's text wasn't just a request for space. It was a betrayal of everything I'd done for her. Maya insisted I go to a clinic to document my injuries. The next morning, every movement hurt. My jaw was a purple mess, and my wrist was so swollen I could barely type. I drove to an urgent care clinic near Pike Place Market, the city's bustle a stark contrast to my inner chaos. The doctor, a kind woman with gray streaks in her hair, examined me gently. Bruised jaw, possible mild concussion, sprained wrist, she said, her voice professional but warm. These injuries are consistent with blunt force trauma. I'm writing a detailed report. She took photos, noting the bruising and a small cut on my lip. I felt exposed, but also validated. Someone saw what happened to me. Back at my loft, Maya sat with me at my glass dining table, her laptop open. "You need to file a police report," she said. I hesitated. What if they don't believe me? It's my word against theirs. Maya's eyes flashed. "Elena, you have injuries. You have a medical report. This isn't your fault, and you're not alone." Her certainty steadied me. We called the non-emergency line, and an officer came by that afternoon. He was polite but clinical, taking my statement and the medical report. "We'll follow up," he said, but I could tell it might not go far without more evidence. Still, it was a start. That evening, I was scrolling through my bank's app, trying to distract myself, when I stumbled on something that stopped me cold. A document in my secure portal. A $600,000 loan agreement for a condo in Belltown, Lila and Troy's dream home. I'd forgotten about it. 6 months ago, Lila had begged me to be the guarantor. "We can't get it without you," she'd said, tears in her eyes. "You're so good with money, Elena." I'd agreed, my excellent credit and 6-figure salary making the bank say yes despite their spotty finances, Troy's startup debt, and Lila's maxed-out credit cards. My name was the foundation of their dream. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. They'd used me again, and now they wanted me gone. The condo, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and rooftop deck, was their perfect future. But it was built on my trust, my sacrifice. I clicked into the loan details, my fingers trembling. There was an option to revoke my guarantee, but it wasn't simple. A multi-step process with warnings about legal consequences. I read every word, my mind racing. If I pulled out, their loan would collapse. They'd lose the condo. Part of me wanted to let it go, to keep the peace like always. But another part, the part that remembered Lila's blank stare as I bled on the floor, screamed for justice. I closed my laptop, not ready to decide. I looked out at Seattle's skyline, the Space Needle glowing against the night sky. This city had always felt like home, a place where I'd built my own life. But my family? They'd never been my home. They'd taken and taken, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my hurt, covering Lila's rent, fixing her resume, taking the blame when she borrowed Dad's old camera and lost it. I was done being their safety net. Maya stayed over that night, crashing on my couch. Over coffee the next morning, I told her about the loan. Her eyes widened. "Elena, you hold the power here. They don't get to hurt you and keep your support." Her words hit hard. I'd spent my life giving to a family that didn't give back. But could I really pull the plug? It wasn't just about the condo. It was about breaking a cycle. I wasn't sure what I'd do, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. That's where I'll leave you for now. Part 3 is coming, and it's a turning point. Things get intense. If you've ever had to stand up to family pressure, drop your story in the comments. It means so much to share this with you. Where are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in part 3. Hey everyone, Elena Harper here, back with part 3 of my story. If you're just joining, go watch parts 1 and 2 to catch up. It's a wild ride. I'm filming this from my Seattle loft, the city's skyline twinkling behind me, and I'm so grateful you're here. Drop in the comments where you're tuning in from, and let me know if you've ever had a moment where you had to stand your ground. This part's about taking control, so buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in. Last time, I was reeling from the assault by my sister Lila's fiancé, Troy, in my own kitchen. Lila, my 32-year-old sister, just watched as I hit the floor, then texted me to stay out of our lives. That betrayal shattered me, but it also lit a fire. I found out I was the guarantor for their $600,000 condo loan, a dream home they couldn't get without my credit and salary. I was torn. Keep the peace, like always, or fight back. This is the moment I drew a line in the sand. After that night, my loft felt different. The sleek glass walls and minimalist furniture, usually my sanctuary, felt cold, like they were mocking the chaos in my heart. My jaw was still swollen. My wrist ached in its brace. And every mirror showed a stranger with a bruised face. But my mind was sharpening, like a blade honed by pain. My best friend Maya had stayed over, her presence a reminder I wasn't alone. Over coffee at my breakfast bar, she'd pushed me to see the truth. Lila and Troy had used me, and their condo dream was built on my trust. Revoking that guarantee could bring it all crashing down. I opened my laptop, the Seattle rain drumming against my windows. The bank's portal loaded, and there it was. The loan agreement for their Belltown condo. All glass and steel, with a rooftop deck they'd bragged about on Instagram. I'd signed on as guarantor 6 months ago, back when Lila's tears and Troy's promises had me believing we were family. My credit score, 790, hard-earned through years of discipline, made the bank say yes, despite Troy's startup debts and Lila's maxed-out cards. Without me, they'd have nothing. Revoking the guarantee wasn't a simple click. The bank's system was like a fortress, designed to prevent rash decisions. I clicked Modify Guarantor Status, and a warning popped up. This action may result in loan cancellation and legal consequences. Proceed? My heart pounded. This wasn't just about money, it was about breaking free from a family that saw me as a tool. I clicked Yes. The system demanded two-factor authentication, a code sent to my phone. I typed it in, my fingers steady despite the pain in my wrist. Next, security questions. My childhood pet's name, Shadow, my tabby cat, my mother's maiden name, Thompson. Each step felt like a ritual, stripping away the old Elena who always said yes. The final step was a digital signature. A legal disclaimer warned, withdrawing your guarantee will likely terminate the loan agreement. I read every word, the weight of it sinking in. This would ruin their plans, the condo, their perfect life. I thought of Lila's blank stare as I bled, Troy's fist, their text telling me to disappear. My hand didn't shake as I signed my name, Elena Harper. I hit submit, and a confirmation popped up. Guarantor status revoked. The primary applicants will be notified. I closed my laptop, my breath catching. It was done. The fallout came fast. That afternoon, my phone lit up with Lila's name. I let it go to voicemail, my heart racing. Her voice was a mix of panic and rage. Elena, what did you do? The bank called. The loan's dead. How could you? This is our future. She sounded like a child who'd lost her favorite toy. I didn't call back. An hour later, my mom, Clara, called. I answered, hoping for support. Elena, how could you be so selfish? She snapped. No hello? No. Are you okay? Lila's devastated. That condo was their dream. You're tearing this family apart over a little fight. I felt the air leave my lungs. A little fight? Mom, Troy punched me. Lila watched. I was bleeding. Her voice hardened. You always make things dramatic. Troy's stressed with his startup, and Lila's planning a wedding. You probably provoked them with your attitude. My attitude. That was the story of my life. I was too smart, too successful, too much. Growing up, Clara had always dismissed me. When I was 16, Lila borrowed my laptop for a school project and spilled soda on it, ruining it. I worked a summer job at a coffee shop to replace it. When I told Clara, she said, "Lila didn't mean it. Don't make a fuss." When I won a coding competition at 18, Clara said, "That's nice, but don't let it go to your head. Men don't like overachievers." Lila got a new dress for every school dance. I got hand-me-downs. The message was clear. Lila was the star, and I was the stagehand. I hung up on Clara, my hands shaking. Her words stung, but they also clarified something. This wasn't just about Troy's punch or Lila's text. It was about a family that had never seen me. I opened my phone and blocked their numbers. Lila, Troy, Clara. The silence was deafening, but it felt right. I wasn't their safety net anymore. That evening, my loft's intercom buzzed, a harsh sound that made me jump. I checked the camera feed. It was Lila and Troy pounding on the building's front door. Lila's face was red, her hair wild in the rain. "Elena, open the door," she screamed. "You're ruining everything, our home, our wedding." Troy's voice was lower, menacing. "You think you can just pull this and walk away? Fix it, Elena." I watched them through the grainy feed, their desperation raw. Lila's voice cracked. "Think of Mom and Dad. Think of us." I felt nothing. No guilt. No urge to fix it. They weren't sorry for hurting me. They were sorry they'd lost their condo. I turned off the intercom and sat on my couch, the city's lights blurring through my tears. Maya called, sensing my mood. "You okay?" she asked. I told her about the loan, the calls, the door pounding. "You did the right thing," she said. "They don't get to use you and then discard you." Her words fueled my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for me, I was breaking a cycle. The next day, I started gathering evidence. I transferred the clinic's medical report to my laptop. Bruised jaw, sprained wrist, minor laceration on lip, consistent with blunt force trauma. I took high-resolution photos of my injuries, my jaw, now a deep purple, my wrist in its brace, the cut on my lip. Each click of my phone's camera was a reminder of what they'd done. I saved everything in a folder labeled Evidence. My loft's hallway had a security camera, and I requested the footage from my building manager. He emailed me a file, time-stamped the night of the assault. I didn't watch it yet. My stomach churned at the thought, but I knew it could be key. I also dug into my email archives, finding messages from Lila begging me to co-sign their lease, to front their deposit, to help with her resume. Each one was a reminder of how much I'd given. One email from a year ago stood out. Lila thanking me for saving her and Troy, calling me the sister I always dreamed of. I laughed, a bitter sound. That sister was gone. Over the next few days, I felt like I was waking up. My loft, once a place of betrayal, became my war room. I worked from home, my dual monitors glowing with code, but my mind was on justice. My wrist brace made typing slow, but I didn't care. I was done being invisible. Clara called again, leaving a voicemail. "Elena, you're breaking Lila's heart. Fix this, for the family." I deleted it. My dad texted, "Call your mother, she's upset." I blocked him too. It hurt, but it was necessary. I wasn't their fixer anymore. Maya came over that weekend, bringing takeout from our favorite dim sum place in the International District. We sat on my balcony, the Seattle skyline stretching before us. "You're stronger than you know," she said, dipping a dumpling in soy sauce. "They're panicking because you're finally saying no." I nodded, watching a ferry glide across Puget Sound. Saying no felt foreign, but it also felt powerful. I wasn't just revoking a loan, I was reclaiming my life. As the days passed, I kept documenting. I saved screenshots of Lila's text, "Stay out of our lives," and Troy's old emails full of fake gratitude. I backed everything up to a cloud drive, paranoid about losing it. My loft's minimalist design, white walls, sleek furniture, felt like a canvas for my new resolve. I started sleeping better, the nightmares of Troy's fist fading. But I knew this wasn't over. Lila and Troy wouldn't let their condo dream die quietly. I was ready for whatever came next. That's where I'll leave you for part 3. Part 4 is coming, and it's a game changer. Things head to the courtroom. If you've ever had to stand your ground against someone you loved, share your story in the comments. It means so much to connect with you. Where are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in part 4. Hey everyone, Elena Harper here, back with part 4 of my story. If you're just joining, go watch parts 1, 2, and 3 to catch up. It's a roller coaster. I'm filming this from my Seattle loft, the city's lights glowing through my windows, and I'm so grateful you're here. Drop in the comments where you're tuning in from, and let me know if you've ever had to fight against false accusations. This part's intense. It's where I take my stand in court. Hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. Last time, I revoked my guarantee on Lila and Troy's $600,000 condo loan, crashing their dream of a fancy Belltown home. Lila, my 32-year-old sister, and her fiancé, Troy, lost it, calling, yelling, even pounding on my loft's door. My mom, Clara, called me selfish, dismissing Troy's assault as a little fight. I blocked their numbers and started gathering evidence. Photos of my bruised jaw, a medical report, security footage from my building. I was done being the invisible sister, the family's fixer. But then, they escalated. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted to rewrite the story. A few days after the door-pounding incident, I got a certified letter. My hands shook as I opened it, the Seattle rain tapping against my loft's glass walls. It was a temporary restraining order, filed by Troy against me. The document was a lie, a masterclass in gaslighting. It claimed I'd been harassing Troy and Lila for months, that I was obsessed with my sister's life, that I'd violently confronted them in my loft. Me, the aggressor. My jaw dropped. The same guy who'd punched me, who'd left me bleeding while Lila watched, was now painting himself as the victim. The order demanded I stay 500 feet away from them, their condo, even their favorite coffee shop in Capitol Hill. For a moment, I felt like I was drowning. How could I fight this? It was their word. Lila and Troy, the perfect couple, with their Instagram-worthy engagement photos, against mine. I sat on my couch, staring at the Space Needle's glow, my wrist still aching in its brace. The city felt so big, so indifferent. I'd spent my life fixing their messes, and now they were trying to erase me. But then I looked at my laptop, at the folder labeled Evidence. Photos of my injuries, a medical report, security footage. A cold resolve settled in. They'd given me a stage, and I was ready to tell the truth. I called Maya, my best friend since 3rd grade. She was at her studio in Fremont working on a graphic design project, but she dropped everything. "They did what?" she said, her voice sharp. I read her the restraining order, my voice cracking. "Elena, this is nonsense," she said. "They're scared because you pulled the loan. They're trying to control the narrative. You've got evidence. Use it." She recommended a lawyer, Ms. Carter, a domestic dispute specialist known for being a bulldog in court. I called her that afternoon. Ms. Carter's voice was calm but steely over the phone. "Send me everything you have," she said. "We're going to bury this." I emailed her the evidence, high-resolution photos of my bruised jaw and cut lip, the medical report stating bruised jaw, sprained wrist, minor laceration, consistent with blunt force trauma, and the security footage from my loft's hallway. I also included screenshots of Lila's text. "Stay out of our lives," and old emails where she'd begged me to co-sign their lease, to front their deposit. Each file felt like a brick in a wall I was building, a defense against their lies. Ms. Carter called back the next day. "This is solid," she said. "The footage is damning. We'll counter the restraining order and expose their story for what it is." The court date was set for a week later at a downtown Seattle courthouse, a gray stone building near the waterfront. The days leading up to it were a blur. I worked from my loft, my dual monitors glowing with cybersecurity code, but my mind was elsewhere. My wrist brace slowed my typing, and every glance in the mirror showed the fading bruise on my jaw, a reminder of what they'd done. Maya came over every night, bringing coffee from our favorite roastery or takeout from Pike Place Market. She'd sit on my balcony, the city's lights reflecting in her eyes, and say, "You're stronger than this, Elena. They don't get to win." Her belief in me was a lifeline. I spent hours with Ms. Carter preparing. She was in her 50s, with sharp gray eyes and a no-nonsense vibe. "We're not playing their game," she said in her office, a sleek space with a view of Elliott Bay. "They want drama. We're bringing facts." We reviewed the evidence, the photos, vivid and brutal, showing my swollen jaw and cut lip, the medical report, clinical and undeniable, the security footage, which I finally watched. It was silent but clear. Me opening my loft door, Troy shouting, his face twisted with rage, then lunging at me, shoving me back inside. Lila standing there, her expression blank, before turning away. My stomach churned, but Ms. Carter nodded. "This is our case." The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I stood on my balcony, the cool Seattle air brushing my face. The city was alive, ferries gliding across Puget Sound, the hum of traffic below. I'd built a life here, a good one, with my cybersecurity career and friends like Maya. But my family? They'd never been part of that. I thought of all the times I'd swallowed my hurt. When Lila lost my favorite necklace at 15, and I took the blame. When Clara dismissed my college graduation as just a degree. When Dad gave Lila his old car while I bussed to work. I was done being their shadow. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. A navy blazer, white blouse, my hair pulled back. My wrist brace was hidden under my sleeve, but my jaw still had a faint bruise, a quiet testament. Maya drove me to the courthouse, her music blasting to keep my nerves at bay. "You've got this," she said, squeezing my hand as we parked. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and old coffee, its halls echoing with footsteps. Ms. Carter met us outside the courtroom, her briefcase stuffed with our evidence. "Stick to the facts," she said. "Let them dig their own grave." Inside, the courtroom was small, with dark wood benches and a high ceiling. I sat with Maya and Ms. Carter on one side. Across the aisle were Lila, Troy, and Clara, a united front of fake victimhood. Lila wore a soft pink dress, dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue. Troy looked polished in a suit, his face a mask of concern. Clara shot me a glare, her lips tight with disapproval. I felt a pang. She was my mother. But I pushed it down. They weren't here for me. They never had been. Troy's lawyer went first, a slick man in a pinstripe suit. He painted a vivid picture of me as an unhinged sister, jealous of Lila's happiness. "Ms. Harper has a history of emotional outbursts," he said, his voice smooth. "She's obsessed with her sister's life, interfering with their wedding plans, their home purchase. She confronted Mr. Dawson violently, forcing him to seek protection. He twisted my career into a weapon, saying my high-pressure cybersecurity job made me erratic, aggressive. It was a masterclass in lies, and for a moment, I worried the judge, a stern woman with silver hair, might buy it. Troy took the stand next, his voice soft, almost pitiful. "Elena's always been difficult," he said, his eyes downcast. She's jealous of Lila, always trying to control her. That night she came at us, yelling about the wedding. I had to protect Lila. He wiped a fake tear and Lila nodded, clutching her tissue. Clara whispered something to Lila, her face full of sympathy. For them. I felt sick. They were rewriting reality and they were good at it. Then it was our turn. Ms. Carter stood, her presence commanding. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear. "My client won't engage in family drama. We're here with facts." She started with the photos, projecting them on a screen. My bruised jaw, my cut lip, the purple marks on my wrist. A murmur ran through the courtroom. The judge leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "These were taken the day after the incident," Ms. Carter said, "consistent with an assault." She read the medical report aloud, her voice steady. "Bruised jaw, sprained wrist, minor laceration, consistent with blunt force trauma." The room grew quiet, the air heavy. Then came the final piece. "Your Honor, we have security footage from Ms. Harper's building, time-stamped the night of the alleged incident." A screen was set up, and the video played. It was silent but brutal. Me opening my loft door, Troy shouting, his face contorted, then shoving me back inside with force. Lila standing there, her face blank, before turning and walking away. The footage ended, and the silence was deafening. I glanced at Lila. She was pale, her tissue forgotten. Troy's jaw was tight, his eyes darting. Clara put a hand to her mouth, but I couldn't tell if it was shock or shame. Ms. Carter closed with a statement. "Ms. Harper is not the aggressor. She's the victim of an assault, and this restraining order is an attempt to silence her." The judge's gavel cracked, making everyone jump. "Petition for a restraining order is denied," she said, her voice like steel. She looked at Troy. "Filing a false report is a serious offense, Mr. Dawson, as is assault. You're fortunate Ms. Harper isn't pressing charges. Yet." She adjourned the court, her eyes lingering on Troy. I felt a rush of relief, but also exhaustion. Maya hugged me, her voice thick. "You did it, Elena." Clara tried to approach as we left, her face a mix of confusion and guilt. "Elena, I didn't know," she stammered. I gave her a cold look and walked past, Maya's hand in mine. In the courthouse hallway, Lila and Troy stood together, whispering frantically. I didn't look back. The truth had won, but the cost was heavy. That night, back in my loft, I stood on my balcony, the Seattle skyline glittering. The victory felt hollow. I'd exposed their lies, but I'd also lost my family. I thought of all the years I'd craved their love, Clara's approval, Lila's gratitude. But they'd never given it. The city's lights blurred through my tears, but I felt a spark of something new. Freedom. I wasn't their fixer anymore. I was Elena Harper, and I was enough. That's where I'll leave you for part 4. Part 5 is coming, and it's about rebuilding. If you've ever faced false accusations, share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Where are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in part 5. Hey everyone, Elena Harper here. Back with part 5 of my story. If you're new, go check out parts 1 through 4 to catch up. It's been a wild ride. I'm filming this from my Seattle loft, the city's skyline twinkling outside, and I'm so grateful you're here. Drop in the comments where you're tuning in from, and let me know if you've ever had to rebuild after losing someone close. This part's about letting go and finding myself, so let's dive in. Hit that subscribe button, and here we go. Last time I faced my sister Lila, her fiancé Troy, and our mom Clara in a Seattle courtroom. Troy tried to slap a false restraining order on me, painting me as the aggressor after he assaulted me in my loft. But my lawyer, Ms. Carter, shut it down with hard evidence, photos of my bruised jaw, a medical report, and security footage showing Troy's attack and Lila's indifference. The judge denied their order and warned Troy about his lies. It was a victory, but it left me drained. I'd exposed their betrayal, but I'd also lost the family I'd spent my life trying to please. Now, it was time to rebuild. The days after the hearing were a haze. My loft, with its sleek glass walls and minimalist furniture, felt like a fortress, but also a cage. Every corner held memories of that night. Troy's fist, Lila's blank stare, the cold hardwood against my cheek. My wrist brace was gone, but my jaw still ached faintly, a reminder of what they'd done. I'd go to work, my dual monitors glowing with cybersecurity code, but my mind was elsewhere. I'd stare at the Space Needle from my balcony, the city's pulse steady while mine felt fractured. I'd won in court, but the emotional fallout was just beginning. Clara called the next morning. I shouldn't have answered, but some part of me, maybe the little girl who still craved her mom's love, picked up. "Elena, how could you do this to us?" she started. "No. Are you okay?" No warmth. "Lila's heartbroken. They lost their condo because of you. You're tearing this family apart." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Mom," Troy punched me. Lila watched. I was bleeding on my floor. Her voice turned sharp. "You're always so dramatic, Elena. Troy's under pressure with his startup, and Lila's planning a wedding. You probably pushed them too far with your opinions. Your career. You make people uncomfortable." Her words cut deep. My opinions. My career. I'd heard this my whole life. When I was 14, Lila borrowed my science project and ruined it before a competition. I rebuilt it in 2 days, but when I told Clara, she said, "Don't be so hard on Lila. She's sensitive." At 20, I got an internship at a tech firm, a huge deal. Clara's response? "That's nice, but don't let it make you arrogant. Men don't like that." Lila got a new phone for her birthday. I got a lecture about priorities. I was too much. Too smart. Too driven. Too independent. Clara wanted a daughter who'd stay small, compliant, like Lila. I wasn't that daughter. I hung up, my hands shaking. "I'm done, Mom," I said, my voice flat. I blocked her number, then Lila's and Troy's again, just to be sure. The silence was heavy, but it felt like cutting a chain. I slid down my loft's wall, the cold glass against my back, and let the tears come. Not just for the assault, but for the family I'd never had. The mother who'd never protected me. The sister who'd used me. I cried for the little girl who'd spent years craving their approval, only to realize it would never come. Maya found me like that, curled up by the window. She'd come over with coffee from our favorite Fremont roastery, her curly hair damp from the Seattle drizzle. She didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me, her presence steady. "You're allowed to grieve," she finally said, handing me a latte. "But you're also allowed to let them go." Her words sank in. I'd spent my life holding up a family that didn't hold me back. It was time to stop. The next day, Clara called from a different number, probably Dad's phone. "Elena, you're being unreasonable," she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. "Lila's devastated. You need to fix this for the family." I laughed. A bitter sound. Fix this. That's what I'd always done. When Lila crashed Dad's old car at 17, I worked weekends to help pay for repairs, even though I wasn't driving. When she needed a co-signer for her first apartment, I signed without hesitation. When Troy's startup needed a loan, I fronted the deposit. I was the fixer, the invisible pillar. But not anymore. "I'm not your safety net," I told Clara. "I'm done." I hung up and blocked that number too. Cutting ties wasn't just a phone block, it was a mental shift. I started therapy the next week, recommended by Maya. My therapist, Dr. Nguyen, worked out of a cozy office in Queen Anne, with plants and soft lighting that felt like a hug. Our first session, I poured out everything. Lila's favoritism, Troy's punch, Clara's denial. Dr. Nguyen listened, her eyes kind but sharp. "You've been carrying a family that never carried you," she said. "Letting go isn't failure, it's survival." She gave me tools: journaling, breathing exercises, ways to process the betrayal. I'd leave her office, walk through Seattle's misty streets, and feel a little lighter, like I was shedding old skin. Work became my anchor. I'm a cybersecurity analyst, and my team was handling a major project, securing a client's cloud infrastructure. I threw myself into it, my fingers flying over my keyboard despite the lingering ache in my wrist. My boss noticed, pulling me aside one day. "Elena, you're killing it," she said. "We're promoting you to lead analyst." It came with a raise and a corner office overlooking Lake Union. I stood at my new window, the water sparkling below, and felt a surge of pride. This was my achievement, not Lila's, not Clara's. Mine. But work wasn't enough. I needed something new, something just for me. I'd always loved plants. My loft had a few succulents, but I wanted more. Maya told me about a community garden in Capitol Hill, a patch of green tucked between brick buildings. I signed up for a plot, nervous but excited. My first day, I stood in the dirt, holding a trowel, surrounded by people who didn't know my family, my pain. I planted herbs, basil, thyme, mint, and a few wildflowers. The soil was cool, grounding, and as I patted it down, I felt like I was planting a piece of myself. Every Saturday, I'd bike to the garden, the Seattle skyline in the distance, and tend my plot. Watching those tiny sprouts grow felt like watching my own heart mend. My loft started to change too. I added plants to my balcony. Pots of lavender, rosemary, even a small lemon tree. The space felt warmer, alive. I'd sit out there at night, the city's hum blending with the scent of herbs, and journal about my therapy sessions. I wrote about the assault, but also about the years before. Lila losing my books, Clara dismissing my coding awards, Dad ignoring my graduation speech. Writing it down was like excavating buried pain. Dr. Nguyen said it was reclaiming my narrative, and she was right. I wasn't just a victim, I was a survivor. The emotional assault didn't stop, though. A week after the hearing, my Aunt Susan texted, her tone syrupy. "Elena, your mom told me everything. Lila's a mess. You need to think of the family." I didn't respond. Then my cousin Mark called, saying, "You're being too hard on Lila. She's sorry." Sorry for what? For watching me bleed? For lying in court? I blocked them too. It was like pruning a plant, cutting away the dead parts to let the healthy ones grow. My family wasn't a family. It was a system built on my silence. I was done being silent. One night, I walked to Pike Place Market, the neon signs glowing against the dusk. I bought a bouquet of dahlias, their colors vibrant, and placed them on my dining table. They weren't for Lila or Clara. They were for me. I started cooking again, simple things like stir-fries or pasta, filling my loft with smells that drowned out the memory of that night. Maya came over and we'd laugh over wine, her stories about her latest design project pulling me out of my head. My chosen family, Maya, my work friends, even the gardeners at the community plot, was starting to fill the void. Therapy helped me see the patterns. Dr. Nguyen asked, "What did you want from your family?" I thought about it, staring at her office's fern. "I wanted them to see me," I said. "Not as a fixer, but as Elena." She nodded. "You're seeing yourself now. That's enough." She was right. I was enough. My promotion, my garden, my loft, they were mine. I didn't need Claire's approval or Lila's gratitude. I was building a home inside myself. A month after the hearing, I hosted a small dinner in my loft. Maya and two work friends came, bringing wine and stories. We sat around my glass table, the city lights sparkling outside, and laughed until my sides hurt. It was the opposite of my family's tense dinners, where Lila's dramas dominated and my voice was ignored. This was warm, real, mine. My balcony plants swayed in the breeze, and I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. That's where I'll leave you for part 5. Part 6 is coming, and it's about finding my true home. If you've ever had to rebuild after losing someone, share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Where are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the finale. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in part 6. Hey everyone, Elena Harper here. Back with the final part of my story, part 6. If you're just joining, go watch parts 1 through 5 to catch up on this journey. I'm filming from my Seattle loft, the city lights dancing outside, and I'm so grateful you've stuck with me. Drop in the comments where you're tuning in from, and let me know if you've ever built a chosen family from scratch. This is the end of my story, but it's also a beginning. It's about finding my true home. Hit that subscribe button and let's wrap this up. In part 5, I cut ties with my family, my sister Lila, her fiancé Troy, my mom Clara, after their betrayal. Troy's assault, Lila's indifference, and Clara's denial were the final straws. I won in court, exposing their lies with photos, a medical report, and security footage. I started therapy, got a promotion at my cybersecurity job, and found joy in urban gardening. My loft became a sanctuary, filled with plants and the warmth of my chosen family, like my best friend Maya. But the story doesn't end there. This part is about what happened a year later, how I found peace, faced one last test, and built a home inside myself. A year after the courtroom, my life felt like a new chapter. My loft was no longer just a sleek, modern space. It was alive. My balcony overflowed with plants: lavender, rosemary, a stubborn lemon tree that refused to give up. Inside, my glass dining table held a vase of wildflowers from the Capitol Hill Community Garden where I spent my Saturdays. My cybersecurity career was soaring. I was leading a team, securing major clients, and loving the challenge. My new office overlooked Lake Union, the water glinting like a promise. Therapy with Dr. Nguyen helped me unpack years of family pain, and I was journaling regularly, filling notebooks with thoughts I'd never dared say aloud. I was healing, not just from the assault, but from a lifetime of being unseen. Seattle became my playground. I'd bike to the community garden, the wind in my hair, the Space Needle a constant in the skyline. I'd walk through Pike Place Market, buying fresh peaches or dahlias, the vendors' voices a cheerful hum. I'd meet Maya for coffee in Fremont, laughing over her latest design project or my latest coding victory. My chosen family grew: work friends, gardeners, even a barista who knew my latte order. These were people who saw me, not as a fixer, but as Elena. For the first time, I felt like I belonged, but the past wasn't done with me. One gray morning, as I watered my balcony plants, a letter arrived. I recognized Lila's handwriting, slanted, a little messy. My heart didn't race like it would have a year ago. I held the envelope standing by my lemon tree, the city's hum faint below. I didn't feel anger or fear, just a quiet stillness. I opened it, more out of curiosity than hope. It was exactly what I expected: a long, rambling apology. Lila wrote that she and Troy had split up, a messy breakup, with him moving out of their apartment. She was in therapy, working on herself. She was sorry for everything, for the assault, for the court lies, for taking me for granted. She wanted her sister back. I sat on my balcony, the letter in my lap, the Seattle rain misting my plants. I thought about the years I'd craved Lila's love, her approval, her gratitude. When we were kids, I'd let her take credit for my art projects, hoping she'd notice me. At 16, I covered for her when she snuck out and got caught, taking the grounding so she wouldn't. I co-signed her lease, fronted her rent, rewrote her resume, all because I wanted to be the sister she needed. But she'd never been that for me. Her letter wasn't about me, it was about her guilt, her need to feel better. I folded it, tore it in half, then quarters, and dropped it in my recycling bin. I didn't need her words. My peace was mine. That moment felt like a door closing. I didn't hate Lila. I just didn't need her anymore. I thought about Clara's calls, her insistence that I fix things. I remembered Dad's silence, his preference for Lila's dramas over my quiet victories. They weren't my family. They were a system that thrived on my sacrifice. I'd spent years building bridges to them, only to be burned. Now I was building something new, a life where I was enough. That evening, I hosted a dinner in my loft. Maya came, along with 2 work friends, Priya and Jamal, and a gardener named Rosa from the community plot. We crowded around my glass table, the city lights sparkling outside. I'd cooked roasted salmon, garlic mashed potatoes, a salad with herbs from my balcony. The room filled with laughter, clinking glasses, stories about Priya's coding mishaps, and Rosa's prize-winning zucchini. It was everything my family dinners never were. Growing up, our table was tense, Lila's latest crisis dominating while I sat silent. Once, at 18, I tried sharing my acceptance to a top tech program. Clara cut me off. Lila's got an audition tomorrow. Let's focus on that. This dinner with my chosen family was warm, real, mine. After dinner, we moved to the balcony, sipping wine under string lights I'd hung among the plants. Maya raised her glass. To Elena, for building something beautiful. I blushed, but my heart swelled. I looked at my lemon tree, its tiny buds a sign of growth, and felt a deep peace. This was my home, not just the loft, but the life I'd created. The people who saw me, who loved me for me, not for what I could fix. The next morning, I biked to the community garden, the Seattle skyline sharp against a rare, sunny sky. My plot was thriving. Basil leaves plump, wildflowers blooming in bursts of color. I knelt in the dirt, pulling weeds, the soil cool under my fingers. A year ago, I'd been a mess, bleeding on my floor, betrayed by the people I loved most. Now I was here, planting, growing, living. The garden was a metaphor, cheesy as it sounds. I'd been a seed, buried under my family's expectations, but I'd broken through, reaching for light. Therapy helped me see it. Dr. Nguyen said, "You're not just surviving, you're thriving." In our sessions, we talked about boundaries, about how my family's love was conditional, tied to what I could give. I journaled about it, filling pages with memories, Lila losing my favorite scarf, Clara dismissing my first coding award, Dad giving Lila his old laptop while I saved for mine. Writing it down was like pulling thorns from my skin. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. I didn't need their validation. My worth wasn't tied to their approval. I started new traditions. Every Sunday, I'd bike to Fremont for coffee with Maya, our table piled with pastries. I'd host game nights in my loft, my friends' laughter echoing off the glass walls. I joined a coding meetup, connecting with other techies over beers in Belltown. I even took a pottery class at a studio near the garden, shaping clay into wonky bowls that made me laugh. Each step was a brick in the home I was building. Not a physical place, but a sense of self, rooted and strong. One evening, I walked to the waterfront, the Olympic Mountains glowing in the sunset. I stood by the Ferris wheel, the water lapping below, and thought about the girl I'd been, always fixing, always hoping. She was still part of me, but she wasn't running the show. I'd survived not just Troy's punch, but the deeper wound of family betrayal. I'd learned that strength wasn't about avoiding scars. It was about what you grew from them. My balcony plants, my garden plot, my career, my friends, they were my growth. A few weeks ago, I noticed something new. My lemon tree, that stubborn little thing, had a tiny yellow fruit forming. It was small, imperfect, but it was mine. I stood on my balcony, the city alive below, and felt free. Not the kind of free that comes from running away, but the kind that comes from standing still, knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. My loft's door was open, ready for whatever came next. New friends, new projects, new dreams. This story wasn't easy to share. It's been a year of pain, growth, and finding my own light. If it resonates with you, I hope it reminds you that you can build your own home no matter what you've lost. My question for you: have you ever created a chosen family? People who see you for you? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Where are you watching from? Hit that like button and subscribe if you've followed this journey. It means the world to me. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Maybe a new story, who knows? Until then, keep growing.